Hello everyone, this is going to be another Legacy's Allure video, but most importantly, this is a video going over why I truly believe Legacy's Allure is the best war game you can play currently. Just to give a little background for myself, you can call me Patrick, and I've played war games for about a year now. Give or take. Played quite a lot of them with my friend, and I think I have a general understanding of what the appeal to war games are, what people like about them, or what some people dislike about them, and I'm just going to go over why I personally believe why Legacy's Allure is the best war game you can play. First off, let's talk about the war games in general. What they are. What is a war game? First off, a war game is a game where you and your opponent are pretty much playing a game that simulates war. War game. And a lot of key aspects about this is that you first have to pretty much make your army. You get your leaders, some regular troops, maybe some vehicles, aircraft, whatever it is you do. And then you place them on the battlefield across from your opponent. You start with everything on the battlefield at once, and then you initiate in a couple turns of combat where you just try and fight over an objective, try and just kill your opponent, things like that. So, Wargame is a very strategically heavy game, a really big thinking game. I think that's what a lot of people like about it. You will go into a game with all these very complex interactions, all of these very tough decisions, all of these, all this expression of skill, I would say, because if you can very easily tell who's good and who's bad at war games, because the people who are good at war games kick your ass easily. People who suck tend to make a lot of mistakes, errors. They tend to forget something or other like that. So, big upside for wargaming is the strategic depth and the skill expression, I would say. Another upside wargaming has is, I would say, the community. Some may have good, some may have bad. It really depends on the wargame. But overall, you're there with the other people who enjoy it. Maybe they like the lore, and you're just talking over, the game, maybe lives while you're playing over this game, and you make a bond, maybe become friends, something like that. Another upside is a lot of war games that involve minis, like plastic minis, and people tend to like painting them, making them, painting them however they like, and that's people's hobby in and of itself. They just buy the plastic models, they buy some paint, and then they just paint over the models over a long course of time. Very relaxing for people. But now, some massive downsides war games have is, first off, a lot of them aren't new player friendly simply because of how complex they are. Albeit they do try and make certain games new player friendly, like, hey, play this unit for this faction, and yada yada yada. But what if I don't want to play that faction? What if I'm if I'm playing Warhammer 40k, which I believe is the most popular war game, and people keep saying, play the Space Marines, but I don't want to play the goddamn Space Marines. I want to play the cool undead robot things, or I want to play the big alien bugs, or I want to play the British people known as the orcs. I don't want to play those guys. I don't want to play no Space Marines. And so, sometimes the thing that people tell you is, this is what I recommend. Sometimes you don't want to play that. And another big downside for war games is that they're usually pretty expensive. Like going back to Warhammer 40k, I think the cheapest army you can possibly buy that's like somewhat competitive is like still like around $500, and that's for a very, very specific faction. Most of them are going to cost over 1,000. And if you're getting new into the game, and I guess you can still slowly buy your way into it, but even in a very small game, that's still like at least $100 or so, $200, and that can. And you may not want to spend that much money for a practice game that you may or may not like. So that's another really big downside. And I guess some other minor downsides, I wouldn't call these really big, but they're minor. One is randomness. We've all had a game where, you roll a die, and then you're like, well, fuck, all my dice have failed, now my whole squad dies because I failed all my saves. I just really needed like a couple dice, and then I really needed like one die to make it, and I would have done what I wanted to do, but because the dice weren't with me, I failed. Shit like that. So randomness sometimes is a thing. Faction matchups is a thing. Like, oh, I'm this faction, I like this faction. Oh, but because I'm against this faction, I'm gonna lose by a large majority of the time, just because their faction deals with my stuff super well. It doesn't happen a whole lot. It's mostly competitive. If you're playing casual, I don't think this is a problem. But anyway, some minor downsides. So I'm going over a lot of this detail of what a war game is because it's very important to understand that Legacy's Allure is a war game. By the definition we've laid out, it is a war game. However, what makes it the best war game? Let's go over the episodes I went over. Big strategic depth. This game has a lot of strategic depth. It may seem simple, but trust me, if you go against someone who knows what they're doing, you're gonna fucking get your ass kicked. Trust me. I still go against people who are better than me, and I will lose like 99% of the fucking time. Like, the strategic depth and skill expression is there. Two, the community. I've been a part of this community for almost 2 years now, and this is some of the best people I've ever met. And this is a very, very small community, I would say. Like Gravy, Speed Robo, Heath himself, the guy who made the game, Rats, Dex, Cared, Empire, a couple others I'm probably forgetting, but like I've met all of them. They're all very great people. They're very active in the community, and they're become very good friends of mine. And this is just a couple people. Imagine this comes a worldwide phenomenon where a lot of people play it. Same exact thing. Community is there. The painting aspect and building aspect, sadly, there's not really that because it's cards. But, you can goof around if you really want to. That's not the right one. Like, you can goof around if you really want to and make your own cards. Like, there's nothing wrong with coming to a game with your own custom card art and having a laugh. This is a big meme in the Legacy Allure. It's like, you just say, hey, this Patrick art would look really good for this character, and you do that. Like, you can very easily make your own pick art in Photoshop, slap it on a card, and be like, come to a game and be like, hey, look, it's funny, right? And they're like, yeah. So there is something you can do there. So like all the upsides are still there. The strategic depth. While it's not as strategically depth as some games, it's much easier for new players to get into. I think you can easily play like 2-3 games, and you'll at the very least understand the very core level of the gameplay. Maybe even just one game. Play 1 to 2 games, you will understand the very base of the game, the rules and everything involved. Anything after that, you're just trying to understand slight interactions with certain pieces. But, in terms of other war games, sometimes it takes you many, many games to understand the basic rules because there's so many, there's a lot of them. You keep forgetting important rules just so you understand the basics, like all that. But everything here is super simple. In fact, it has one of the best ideas I've ever seen. Let's take a look at the Hellbear. You know, it has charging, imbued, burn 2, it has an ability. Well, what does any of this mean? You know, well, it's very simple. You just flip the card in the back. Here's everything you need to know about those abilities. Charging. You move attack in a single action. Cool. Imbued. This unit does combat damage as magic damage. Cool. Burn X. Big long fucking details of what burn does. Combinable. Explains what combinable does. This explains roar more in depth. Like, everything you need to know about the card is on the back. There's no going to a third website, looking it up, like, oh, what is this rule? You know, how does this work? Yada, yada, yada. Albeit, there are some interactions that are not on the back because it gets a bit more complex. But those answers are, the situations are rare, and they're usually easily resolved by just talking to your opponent and being like, hey, how should we play this? This seems fair. Okay, we'll do this from now on. We'll ask later how it should work. But yeah, so the rules are very easy to understand. Like, you know, I can even tell you like all the base rules now. So there's 3 things you can do with a piece. I'll grab the one thing that's not a goddamn. But let's go over the base rules of the game. Everything you can do with a card. You can move, which is you take the movement number, which is 2 in this case, and you move it that many hexes. There you go. You've already learned a third of the rules. Okay. There's attack, which is if you're next to someone, you can attack them. Say, hey, I'm going to attack them. So then you move into their hex, you attack them with your power, you see if that kills them or not, depending on whether or not the unit dies, the enemy unit strikes back or just dies. There we go. But now let's look at charging. Charging is a very important keyword, so I'm just going to go over this. Charging says you can move and attack at the same time. What this means is that instead of having to be next to people and then attacking, you can be further away and then run into combat and then attack. There we go. And the last one is use an ability. So Hellbear has an ability, has an active ability, I should say. There's passives and actives. And I'm like, I want this guy. I want to use this ability on this guy. So then I can use combinable here, which is another important keyword. It means you can move and use an ability at the same time. I will then walk up and be like, I will use this ability. I will use roar. Move target adjacent enemy 1 hex away from Hellbear, if able. I do that. There we go. I've used the ability. This is all the base rules of the game. Everything past this are specific to cards. Like, that's very simple. I taught you that in less than a minute. Like, the base rules are very easy to understand, and it's still very strategic depth. Community was there. What's I'm talking about? Oh yeah, the price points. Like I said, so a lot of war games are expensive. For Legacy's Allure, I think it's like $30 for a faction pack. Which is literally everything you would ever need to make a competitive list is $30. There you go. If you want to play the other factions, you can buy them, but you don't have to. I think the item pack is like $20, but so everything you would ever need is like $50 max, and then you're set for the whole year. There's none of this. Oh well, I want to try this model, so I have to spend $50 to $100 more just to buy it. There's none of that stuff. Like, if you want to try something new, you've already bought everything. Easily swap it out. There you go. So the price point is super easy and everything. Another downside I actually didn't say about war games is that they usually take a long time. Usually around 4 or so hours if you're like kind of new, or you're trying to if you're looking up rules. If you're talking to your opponent, slowing down the gameplay a little bit, it takes around 4 hours. If you're really good, I think you can get it down to like 3 hours, but that's still a long time. Simply put, sometimes you don't have time to play a war game because it's 4 hours out of your day that you have to dedicate to one game. In Legacy's Allure, 20 minutes, easy peasy. And that's not even, the 30 hours isn't even including setting up the board state, putting out all your models, cleaning it up afterwards, putting all the things away. It's not even including that. Legacy's Allure, you have a deck of 30 cards, give or take, more or less, around there. Walk up to someone, say you want to play, they say yes. Take out a mat you probably have in your backpack or some other thing. Place it down, not even a minute, and you start playing. Game lasts about 20 minutes on average, I would say. 15-20 minutes if you know what you're doing. If you're new, maybe 30, but still not very long. And then you're done. Like, it's very easy to get a game in for Legacy's Allure. You just play a quick game. Be like, you want to play again? No, I can't. Only time for one. There you go. You got a war game in. You've that itch you've been having, like, oh, I really want to play a war game. I really want to, play this. I really want to play this. Play this. That will scratch your itch very easily. There are many times where I just play this because I don't have time to play a war game, and I'm satisfied for the day. And another very good upside I would say Legacy's Allure has is that how drafting works. So usually in most war games there's a couple other that kind of does this, but not really. Is that when you sit down, you show everything to your opponent, because this is an open information game. There's no hidden information. Everything that you would need to know about your opponent is laid out in front of you. So there's no surprises. Maybe you thought an interaction worked a different way, but other than that, there is no surprises. So your opponent, instead of saying, "Oh, I have this big fucker thingy that kills all your guys," whoop-de-doo, and you're like, "Oh, well, that sucks, because if I knew that, I wouldn't have done that move. But since it did, I'm dead now." There's some things like that, but this doesn't have any of those moments because you know everything. Usually if your opponent's a good sport, they'll say, "Hey, I know you're doing this, but I could do this, and it could really mess you up. I'll let you take back your move," and then there you go. But so I have this list here, and this is all my cards, and then I can easily look over to my opponent and be like, okay, this is all his cards. This is on TTS, so it's a bit more laid out, but you can easily fan out cards and be like, okay, he has these cards because I know their names. You can look it up and be like, okay, what's his plan here? He's going for knights, it looks like. A lot of knights there. And some healing. So how do I counter knights? Because obviously he has quite a lot of knights. How do I deal with them? Well, Magic Gamers deals with them very good. So I'm going to play a Hellbear. Hellbear is genuinely very good. It's a very safe pick because no matter what, it's going to be good. So I'm just going to place down a Hellbear, preemptively counter his knights. There we go. But the opponent's like, oh, okay, he is playing a Hellbear. Okay. Well, I have this unit, which does really good against Hellbear, so I'm just going to plop him down. There you go. That. Oh, but I don't quite have enough money. I need to play something else. I'll play an archer. Simple archer. Pass the turn. And you go back and forth like this over and over and over again. So you can still have you still have a basic core strategy. Pretty much every list does. They have like 30 to 50 gold preemptively determined. Being like, this is what my core strategy is. This is what my plan is. The rest of the goal is to kind of counter what my opponent is doing and be flexible. So you're usually never caught up like, oh, this matchup's bad for me because I'm against this faction. That doesn't happen. Every faction has cards that do really good against every faction. You may not play a Hellbear into every other faction, but against Erangard it's really good. So I'm gonna plop one in there. It's not a big deal if I don't draft it, because I forgot to say this. You make a deck, a kingdom, I should say, of 160 gold. Gold is just the top right number here. Make sure these add up to 160. And you plop down 80 gold for battle. So you have like half your deck, you play with half your kingdom, the other half is like a sideboard. If that makes any sense. So you're never caught off guard, because you should always, if the more you play, the more you understand, like, this counters this, This is a problem, so I'm going to run this to deal with that, and so on and so forth. So, even outside the game, there's a lot of thinking and strategy to what you do or do not put in your deck. Usually in Wargames going back to 40k, you make a list preemptively and then you see what your opponent is playing. There's no changing your list afterwards. You just do it. You just play. And like I said, that could cause some feel bad because maybe a large portion of your plan doesn't work against your opponent. Maybe your plan is, I have a really tough melee front line, I'm going to slowly push him up and stab the enemy. And then your opponent's like, oh, well, I have this thing that turns off your resistances, that lowers your resistances, so then I can kill him better. Well, now it's like, well, fuck, that was my plan. I guess I can't do that plan anymore. Albeit, like, that is a part of the strategy, like, you can't always do your plan and strategy, but that happens in this game just as much. Your opponent does something, you're like, shit, I can't do what I wanted to do. I have to pivot. It's very easy to do. Another upside about Legacy's Allure is that, from what I could tell, there are a couple war games that go, I do my whole turn, you do your whole turn, and there's some of them that go, you go, I go. I move a unit, you move a unit, I move a unit, you move a unit. Legacy's Allure is the latter, which I think is much better, because you don't want to sit for an hour waiting for your opponent to go. You want to play. And this also prevents any fucklers combos, I think it's called. Like, for example, famous combo here, take the slingshot, take a Hellion, and then you take Troll Shaman. In fact, I can even show you on the card here. On a Patrick card. This is a fucklers combo. Big idea is that the Troll Shaman buffs a guy, does like 5 damage to something, and it doesn't die. But it's gonna die soon. But the slingshot says, hey, I'll kill that unit and I'll do its damage to something around me. So you do 5 damage to something, then it's done. Then this says you're not done yet, and then you use it to do that damage again to something else. So you pretty much get a ton of damage for very cheap. But I can't just do that willy-nilly because it takes a long time to do. My opponent can very easily react to it. There's a lot of things I can do in a span of 3 turns to stop me. And if I can do something in 3 turns, that means either my opponent messed up or I sufficiently tapped down all of his important things, forced him to do his important things that could stop me. And then there we go, I can do my fuckless combo. But you can't just do a fuckless combo willy-nilly. You have to wait for very key timings. You can't wait too late because then you don't have enough pieces to do the fuckless combo. You can't do it too early because they can stop it. There's a very precise moment like this is it. I can do it right now to do my big combo, to do something. But even then, maybe you misplayed. Maybe your opponent had a thing up their sleeve like, oh, I know you didn't think of this, but I can run this guy way over here to here and do this, and then I'll stop your fuckless combo. And it's like, quick fuckless combo. Like, I'm saying a lot of fucklers combos, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I mean, the best way I can explain Legacy's Allure is that you take a war game, you take out everything you hate about it, you keep everything you like, and that's Legacy's Allure. Think of any war game. Think of all the things that you just dislike, take them out. Keep all the things you do like, Legacy's Allure has it. That is what Legacy's Allure is. And plus, we're not even getting over to the heroes. I haven't even gotten to the heroes yet. So, in Legacy's Allure, there are these heroes, which are like very key. It's your most important piece. Like, your hero is your strongest piece without a doubt, no question about it. And your hero is very flexible because you can make them super expensive with all their abilities, and they can have these items they can buy and put on them. You can give them the most expensive and best war gear possible. And you can have your hero be a one-man army that just runs around and kills everything, and just like it's impossible to deal with. Or you can do a very simple, like, I'm gonna run this and this. There we go. That's my hero. 3 gold. He's gonna kick ass, and he will kick ass. Don't you forget about it. He will kick ass. A 0 gold unit, your 0 gold hero is still your best hero, best unit in the game. So you can very easily customize your hero to be yours and be whatever it is you want to be. But an important thing is, like, let's look at chess. Your king is the most important piece. If your king dies, that's it, it's over. In Nexus Allure, your hero is usually your most important piece because it's your strongest piece. But if you lose your hero, you don't lose the game. It's just another piece. You can easily lose your hero and still win the game. It just depends on like how you and your opponent play. Because how you win in Legacy's Allure is that there's this gold piece. You play 7 rounds. At the end of the 7th round, whoever is on that wins. I should say, one says the attacker, one says the defender. If the attacker is on that golden hex, they win. If not, they lose. There's no ties. You either win or you lose. Either your piece is on there, or it's not. And you either win or lose depending on that. Trying to think of anything else. I know this is not a very good video, and I usually ramble on a lot, but this is just what I do. But anyway, I think that's about everything. If you're sick of war games, or you're just looking for a new one to play, I think this is by far your best option. I've yet to see someone really truly dislike this game. I can't think of anyone who said this is the dumb game, why am I playing this game, it's so stupid, everything about this is wrong. And if they do say that, they're usually wrong and they have the thumb up their ass. I kid. But yeah, I genuinely think this is the best war game you can play. If I could play any war game for the rest of my life without playing any others, I would easily pick this one. It does everything. It has everything I like. Doesn't have the only thing I would say this doesn't have is it doesn't have a big community. But in due time, this will get bigger. This will get more popular. I have no doubt in my mind. This will become a very big and popular war game where you can easily go to your wherever it is you go and play a game with a random person and have fun. That's really the only downside I can think of it, but that's barely a downside because it can easily get fixed with time. But anyway, like I said, I know I ramble on a lot, but I hope my points were clear, and I hope you play Legacy's Allure, the best war game possible.